人間環境フォーラムにご協力いただき、また、米国の NGO インターニュースのご講演をいただき、開催することができました。誠にありがとうございます。私は、この企画の主催団体である一般社団法人環境パートナーシップ会議の副代表理事をしております、星野智子と申します。本日の司会を務めさせていただきますので、最後までよろしくお願いいたします。今回はタイトルにありますように SDG14 の海洋の課題にスポットを当てまして、持続可能な漁業を実現するためにどのような共同連携ができるかを皆さんと一緒に考えていきたいと思っております。本日7月15日はオンラインではあるんですが、スイス・ジュネーブにあります世界貿易機関 WTO において漁業補助金閣僚会議が開催されています。現地時間午前8時からの開始ですから、もう2時間前ほどに始まっております。この閣僚会議では、有害補助金、つまり、違法、無報告、無規制漁業、いわゆる IUU 漁業や、過剰漁獲、乱獲につながる補助金を廃止するための国際合意の設立を目指していく方針が確認されることが期待されております。世界の魚類の 34% が乱獲されて、沿岸地域の貧困を招いており、漁業資源の枯渇が重大な懸念となっていることと報告されております。今日は水産庁をはじめ、漁業者、加工、流通、飲食店、研究者、そして NGO、メディアの方など多方面からご参加をいただき、この IUU 漁業や有害漁業補助金を撤廃し、持続可能な漁業及び水産物の流通や消費を促していくための取り組みを、第1セッションではマクロな視点から、そして第2セッションでは企業等による取り組みなどに焦点を当てて議論をしまして、何ができるのか皆さんと一緒に考えていきたいと思っております。ライブでもご質問を受け付けておりますので、ご質問やご意見は Zoom の Q&A のところから書き込んでいただければと思います。皆様には、チャットの方にもご案内しておりますが、音声の件と、Q&A の機能についてご案内している通りですのでご確認ください。本日は同時通訳機能がありますので、日本語で聞かれる方は日本語、英語で聞かれる方は英語のボタンを押して聞いてください。Q&A は、Zoom の Q&A 機能よりできるだけ簡潔に、またどなた宛てのご質問かをご指名書いていただければありがたいと思います。ご協力お願いいたします。それでは本日は1時間ずつ第1セッション、第2セッションに分かれておりますが、まず、
with two sessions. First, we would like to start the first session. We have the speakers, and I would like to introduce the first presenter. We have Mr. Hirai. He is from the fishery agencies. Mr. Terai, and he is Assistant Director of Fisheries Processing Industries and Marketing Division of the fisheries agencies. And he is engaged in various measures, including seafood certificate scheme to promote sustainable seafood distribution by eliminating IUU fishery, deriving seafood from the market. So I would like to invite Mr. Terai as the first presenter. Mr. Terai, please.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind introduction. I am Mr. Terai with Fishery Agency, Processing and Distribution Division. Let me get into the subject. So today I'd like to explain about IUU fishing elimination. Namely, I'd like to focus on the law regarding that topic, as well as fishery and fishery eco level. So let me start with Act on Domestic Distribution and Importation of Specified Aquatic Animals and Plants. So the law was established back in 2000 December, and the Fishery Agency is preparing for the enactment of the law by 2022. So let me explain the background, both at home and abroad. This legislation will cover both domestic and overseas markets. In Japan, we are seeing illegal fish catching, poaching, and sometimes illegal activities are taking place at night. So we have to shed light on the current situation, but it's getting more and more difficult and complex to crack down the illegal activities. And outside Japan, I know that people's interests are getting bigger and bigger in light of SDGs. So anyway, the law was introduced back in December. And let me give you the overview of the law. There are two parts. On the left, you see category 1 that is targeting domestic market. And category 2 refers to imported products. So I'd like to start with category 1 that focuses on domestic transactions or distributions. So first, report has to be filed to the government by traders, and then number is given to each filing or each report. And then transaction record and harvest must be recorded. And at the time of export, catch certificate has to be attached. So for the domestic distribution transaction, those 4 steps are required. And regarding importation, it's much simpler. Catch certificate issued by third country has to be submitted. And then custom should be able to identify illegal importation, if any. And regarding species that are subject to the regulation, still discussion is underway, so we will come back to you for details later. So the distribution network could be quite complex in Japan, and freshness is important. The speed of assessment is important. The origin of the product is specified, but again, the speed is important from the perspective of all stakeholders. Stakeholders include many different parties. So in order to make it effective, we have to address different challenges, but we will do our best to introduce this act in a smooth manner, not to cause any disruption or confusion. Next, I'd like to move on to fishery and aquaculture eco level. So this will contribute to indirectly prevention of IUU fishing. So this was introduced in light of illegal, irresponsible activities. So in order to identify transaction that is in compliant, we decided to introduce this level. And consumers should be able to identify products that are in compliant in the chain of custody, with the chain of custody certification. To certify the level, there are 2 parts. One is production certificate. We make sure that products are in compliant and sustainable, eco-friendly produced. And the second is chain of custody certification. Level is to certify products that are treated separately from non-certified products throughout the supply chain. And we believe that this can contribute to SDGs. I believe that this is attracting a lot of attention, and we are gaining more and more awareness. although awareness is still limited, so we'd like to continue to educate consumers about our eco level. That is all for my explanation. Hirai-san, thank you. Terai-san, thank you very much.
それから、水産物の認証制度、エコラベルについて詳しくお話をいただきました。どうもあ
Thank
り
you,
がとうございました。
thank you for sharing the information about seafood distribution law and certification system.
先生にお願いします。海部先生
Next, we'd like to ask Professor Kaifu. He is the professor of the Faculty of Law at your university, and he is engaged in the trading of a glass eel.
先生よろしくお願いいたします。
So, Professor Kaifu, please
進捗でお渡ししますのでお待ちください。ではお願
let
い
us
します。
put up the presentation material. Thank you for the introduction. This is Kaifu of the Faculty of Law of the Chuo University. Actually, I am not a professional in the law or specialist, and I am engaged in the fishery research, particularly in the area of the glass eel issue. So slide, please. Presentation, please. Please wait for a minute. Today, I would like to talk about the glass wheel. And glass wheel, we grow. Usually, it is not made that the glass is all the young eel is called a glass eel, and when we have the eggs, we harvest from the sea and breed them in the pond. So we 100% depend upon the natural eel. And as for all the glass eel or young eel, there is a much illicit, illegal trading going on. And as for the domestic, the eel, either they were caught domestically or imported. First, about those that caught domestically, the one that was caught licensed and unlicensed, there are two different sources. And of course, in order to catch the glass eel, you need a license. So if you're not licensed, of course, that is illegal. And furthermore, in case you are not, even if you are licensed, you need to report the catching of the glass eel. And if you're not reporting that, again, you are subject to the penalty. So as for the glass eel caught domestically, either caught illegally or a licensed but not reported. So there are three different sources of the IUU glass eels. On the other hand, when we look at the one imported, whether there are two different sources, legal or smuggling via third country. So as among those glass eel, quite a lot smuggled into Japan. Please go on to the next one. So all of these glass eel, they mix together, and it is very difficult to differentiate them when they come to the farm in Japan. So roughly speaking, we have three different sources, and they all come into the same farms in Japan. Next, please. As a result, this is the situation back in 2015. Amongst the only 30 to 40% of the glass eel distributed is actually the legal type of the glass eel. Next, please. And among these, we have three different sources. As for the smuggling, unlicensed, the fine has been raised to 30 million yen. So this is a good thing. But other ones, the unreported and smuggling, those are the main problems. In order to eradicate this problem, what is necessary is to lift the regulation prohibiting glass eel trade among different prefectures. And also, we need to manage eel under the new catch certificate scheme. And considering the gist of this seminar, I think it is very important to manage eels under the new catch certificate scheme. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Kaifu. Thank you. We received the proposal about the proper allocation of the and also smuggling the countermeasures.
Next, allow me to introduce Mr. Takeo Ota. Mr. Ota is a newspaper reporter and has been covering domestic and international initiatives to realize sustainable fishery. Mr. Ota, over to you. Thank you. Let me share my slide. Okay. Thanks for the opportunity. I am Ota. From the perspective of newspaper reporter, I'd like to discuss what can we do to prevent IUU fishing and make a progress. So first off, I'd like to discuss some IUU both at home and abroad. And of course, IUU is something that may not be obvious, so we have to establish a system that allows us to monitor. And we also need to collaborate with different countries. So there are different the countermeasures. Some are pro and con. So I'd like to focus on number 3, import control. So if there is a suspected case, what we can do is not to import. Well, the reason why I decided to pick up this is that cost is not that high. When we import or export products, some documentation is supposed to be checked at a custom. And if the documentation says that this product or fish product is legally caught, I think we can prevent illegal IUU from being entered into this country. So I think it's important to apply this to as many species as possible, as well as many countries as possible. Moving on to Japan, well, we could make the best use of technology. And it's important to make sure that we can identify non-IUU fishing versus IUU fishing. And the cost could be high to introduce regulations in Japan. Unlike importation, it's not really that simple. It's not just custom, because all stakeholders reside in Japan. It's not easy to monitor everyone, including fishermen. So we need a system that helps people to record information. I think it's important to make the best use of IT technology so that we can use a system to record necessary information. Next is about subsidy. I think it's an important topic. When it comes to fisheries subsidy, I think that there are some misunderstandings. So if we say we want to use subsidy to build fishing boats, if that would lead to overfishing, you may call it harmful. But it depends on species. With global warming, some species are reducing population, but that's not the case for some other species. So not every subsidy is harmful. So we have to look at specific cases. And I think it's important to take a look at details. So subsidy has been criticized because there were some doubts that could harm resources, or that may not lead to improvement of efficiency. I think we have to take a look at details. So what should we do next? Well, in Japan, I think we need to increase budget for research and study. I know that there are some areas that need to go deep, and to facilitate research, we need budget. In the United States, 50 billion was available. In Japan, I think it was 870 million. And I know that a few hundred million budget have been allocated to research in Japan. I think we need more. We need monetary, financial, and human resources. And once we found something is sustainable, we can take another look at this. Talking about regulation or subsidy, some may be reluctant to move on. But again, the objective is to protect resources. Objective is to make sure that fishermen can continue to survive and make a living. And also, I think it's important to facilitate international discussion. Instead of being judgmental, instead of saying that all kinds of subsidies are harmful, I think we have to have a wider view. Japan is trying to protect fishermen. And if we make it clear the intent, I think we can facilitate discussion. I think it's important to invite other countries to facilitate the discussion. Okay, that is all for my part. Thank you. Mr. Ota, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing insights and proposal on how to leverage data, step-up controls, and research and form international consensus. Thank you.
Next, we have Yukiko Kuwata. Ms. Kuwata is an independent advisor for the global NGO, the Nature Conservancy, and is promoting international collaboration in the field of marine and fishery policies. Ms. Kuwata, please. Thank you. Let me share the material with you. Now, the import control implementation and beyond is today's title of my presentation. Now, just a little bit of the explanation about the TNC. This organization was established 70 years ago. Actually, we don't have a branch in Japan, but this is one of the largest NGOs in the United States. And currently, we focus particularly on the tracking climate change and the healthy oceans, land and water. And around the globe, we operate more than 100 projects for the world's oceans, which of course includes the efforts to abolish IUU fishing, which is something very important. So we have been collaborating with the many different sectors around the globe. For example, in EU, we work with the other NGOs, and we have the IUU Watch. And also, starting in 2016, we have been holding the EU Anti-IUU Forum to support this initiative. Also, there is the new forum, Leading Women for the Oceans. This is the forum for the women to work and support the marine issues. From the political and economic aspects, we would like to send out the message on this matter as well. Now, let me go into the main part. In EU, they already have the IUU issues. Some are successful, some not so successful. And these countermeasures that I would like to get some hints and lessons because they have all these IUU measures covering all the countries in this region. Maybe there's something that we can learn from Japan. And at this point, an implementable roadmap to cover all the species in the future is something desirable, although it might be rather realistic to start from the particularly vulnerable species. For example, in the United States, they have picked up 13 species, but according to the newest report, well, so we have seen some good results. There is the fabrication in order to target other species, So ultimately, it is very important to cover all species. And we need to have no loophole. For example, if there is a very stringent restriction only in the EU countries and in the United States, maybe there's a movement coming towards other countries like Japan and Thailand. And thirdly, a global alignment is very important. I will refer to this later on, together with the EU, United States, and RFMO. In other words, we need to tackle this as a global issue. Number four, we need to have a flexibility so that we can change that in the future. The technology is changing, and we need to be able to timely accommodate such changes in the future. And furthermore, electronic monitoring using CCTV, net sensors, etc., may be considered for effective implementation. And when it comes to the regulation against the IUU, various important framework are related with each other. So these other schemes need to be given consideration at the same time. But why is the reason that we have to have this level of the very stringent regulation in Japan? I think there are four reasons. Number one, IUU fishing is interrelated, a very difficult, complicated global issue. So this cannot be eliminated without the big players closely collaborating. And secondly, they prevent Japan from being targeted by fraudulent operators. Once this happens, Japan might be targeted by these operator, and this will damage those honest, good operators. So we need to protect these workers, the fishery operators. And finally, Asia's importance in Japan's capacity for leadership. And this is where Japan should stand and to express the leadership. And nextly, why is it important to have all the species? Uh, because this could lead to a loophole and could be less effective. And as a third point, the extra workload and cost. As a matter of fact, according to the primarily investigation of EU, when you have different regulations and different levels of the what you can do here, but maybe not other area, that could lead to mistakes and the extra workload. Now, why is it necessary to have the alignment with the existing schemes? If you have a different requirement amongst different countries, there's always a different loophole, contradiction, and when it's very complicated and different in each country, and bad guys always tend to find them. But it is difficult for someone who is trying to stop these loopholes and bad behavior. So after all, for fisheries and supply chain actors and players, the cost of complying with the different system would be significant. And also, the global alignment of these KDEs between major market ensures a global fair competitive field and a trade facilitation. Thank you very much. That's all for myself. Thank you very much, Ms. Kuwata. Thank you for sharing the practices in the European and American field.
Last but not least, I'd like to introduce Mr. Masanori Kobayashi, Senior Researcher of Ocean Policy Research Institute, Sasagawa Peace Foundation, who studies blue economy and fisheries policy. Mr. Kobayashi, the floor is yours. Thank you. I am Kobayashi with Ocean Policy Research Institute, Sasagawa Peace Foundation. So today I'd like to discuss what we have been studying and share some findings with you. In February this year, Ian Avina, New York Times reporter, joined our online seminar to discuss IUU fishing status and also challenges to collaborate internationally regarding IUU fishing. This could lead to resource depletion, but not only that, sometimes forced labor or organized crimes are involved. So this is one of the social issues. So those who are involved in IUU fishing, the flag nation, flag states government's policy could also impact. And the countries that give permit, well, such as coastal states and port states, a willingness to prevent IUU fishing could be very important. And as you pointed out, even if one country is trying to control this issue, the other countries need to also get involved in order to make sure that policy is effective. So that's a topic that we discussed in the online symposium. I believe that last month, his book was also translated into Japanese and published. And as Ota-san mentioned last week, in order to eliminate harmful fishery subsidies, we had a seminar. And we also discussed that it's important to collaborate internationally to eliminate harmful subsidies. And it's important to make sure that initiatives are executable. And IUU fishing could deplete the resources, and that would lead to economic loss. But for fisheries who are in compliant, may also face some challenges or may lose income if we don't make it right. And in order to facilitate sustainable fishing, we have to give incentive. Benefit is important. And in Japan, well, Japan is the second or third largest fishery market. So it's important for Japan to act right regarding IUU fishing. As Ota-san just mentioned, it's important to ensure sustainability. And also, Terai-san briefly touched, but in stages, we need to prioritize species. And as Kawata-san mentioned, some say that all species should be included in the scope. So we have to strike a balance. We may have to take a step-by-step approach, but at the same time, we have to be inclusive. And regarding economic loss, those who are incompliant may be impacted if IUU fishing gets spread because fish price could go down. They may not be able to enjoy enough profit. As Hirai-san also mentioned, it's important to gain understanding from consumers. This may be covered in session 2. So to do it right, you may have to spend some money, and the fishermen have to be ingenuitive, and they have to also collaborate with different stakeholders. And then lastly, I think Japan has to be aligned with other countries, and we should not separate imported products from others. Domestic fishery products and imported products should be subject to the same level of regulation. So in order to realize an effective policy, we also would like to do our best. Thank you for your attention. Kobayashi-san, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your insights and outcome of the symposium held last week. Thank you.
Now
we'd like to have the free discussion, and we'd like to ask the Kobayashi-san to serve as the moderator. And we have the 5 presenter, and we have the short time until 5 minutes before 6 o'clock. And we'd like to open the floor for any audience to give the question. And if you have any question, please write in the QA box. Our apology, we may not be able to answer all of the questions due to the time constraint. Mr. Kobayashi, please. Thank you. So we'd like to start the session. There's a question to Terai-san, and we'd like to start from us, Terai-san.
Okay, so regarding certificate, you said it's important to be speedy without spending a lot of time. People or stakeholders have to be able to obtain certificate. Should we focus on specific species, or should we include all species? So I know people could be divided. How are you trying to strike a balance? And regarding MSC or eco level, in order to make the best use of this system, we got a question from the audience. Well, the audience suggested it's important to include 100% of species. So what's your target? Do you have any goal or target regarding eco level? And I would like to know if the agency is trying to educate consumers as well about the level. Thank you. Thank you for your question. So regarding your first question, so regarding IUU fishing, in order to make it complex, well, I know that Kuwata-san mentioned whether we should include all kinds of species into the scope. The agency is now taking a look at this topic in details, whether to include all species. So the discussion is still underway. We have to make sure that the system is meaningful and effective. And that this system could involve wide variety of stakeholders. For example, well, stakeholders include fishermen, wholesalers, buyers, processing companies, retailers. So the system could impact on different kinds of stakeholders. So we have to make sure that the system is reasonable for all stakeholders. So we need to spend enough time to discuss and make sure that we receive gaining from stakeholders. As for Japan, numbering system is unique to Japan. It's different from the West. This is quite ambitious system, so we are quite motivated to make this successful. But once again, we should avoid confusion to introduce the system. So that's one. Secondly, regarding eco level, fishery eco level. So the question is whether we have a target. Well, the third party is supposed to certify the level. So the government has no target because it involves third party certifying bodies. But at the same time, it's important to improve the awareness of this level in order to make it prevalent. So in this fiscal year, we have secured a budget to educate people and improve the awareness of the level among consumers. So I'd appreciate your support. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Terai. As for how we send out the information, it might take a little time to explain about the infrastructure, legal infrastructure. So maybe we'd like to wait for another time together with the information sharing on the website by the fishery agency. We need to properly get the information from the fishery-related operators about where this fish was caught and how. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask the question to Professor Kaifu. about the glass wheel. I listened to your presentation very with a great interest. You said there are legal and illegal distribution, and I think to differentiate these two sources would be beneficial for not only for the consumers but for all the related operators. But in reality, the glass eel is not a part of the a large distribution or prioritize the species, and what is actually the reason this is making it difficult to reform this system. And sometimes the eel is sold fresh and some are sold frozen. And how should we think about this reality? Thank you for the question. Yes, the abalone is included, but not the glass eel in the Act for the improvement of the domestic trade of the specific marine animals and plants. And when there is a big pool, I think that there is the clearer representation of the relationship in terms of the interest of the operators. Probably with this privileged species, in case of abalone, maybe the operators will be beneficial, but in a case of a glass eel, probably the cultivators would be losing the benefit, and this is making this improvement more difficult. And because they don't think that it's going to be beneficial for them, and with the deep relationship with the many policymakers, they will be putting up the request to the lawmakers. So there are quite a few the factors hampering the innovation. And next, about not only about the glass eel, but there are about the differentiation about those natural eel, frozen or the caught. Of course, there are legal the eel imported through legal distribution. However, amongst all the imported eel, there are many illegal in eel in many different aspects. So people tend to pay just the glass to glass eel, but the it's not only glass eel, but we should cover all the eel from the young glass eel to the all grown-up eel, everything. Otherwise, we cannot cover this issue. So this may ultimately leading to cover all the species. Otherwise, we will always have the loophole to make this a problem even more complicated. And also, back to the first question, what is making it more difficult? If we have the eel to be subject to the Act for the improvement of the domestic trade of the specific marine animals and plants, this is of course very important, and the fishery agency plays an important role. And I have a question to the Hirai-san. In the a part of this, the Act for the improvement and domestic trade of these specific marine animals and the plants, it says that it is very important to cover those items which is on verge of the extinction or in the danger of badly damaged. And I think that I believe that eel is definitely a part of this. And as the fishery agency, what is the view of the fishery? How do you view eel, whether that is subject should be subject to this act or not?
Terai-san, your thoughts? Thank you for your question. So regarding species, the working team is taking a look at details. So we have defined the criteria to certify species, and depending on criteria, we make a judgment whether each species should be included in scope. So discussion is still underway. And so far, regarding domestic catch, sea cucumber, abalone, and glass eel are included in the scope, are certified. Thank you. So to identify species, I know people could be divided. This may not be a popular topic, but I know that the authority is currently working on criteria to make a judgment. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I agree that you first set up the standard, then to restrict the number. And next, I have the question to Ota-san.
So regarding subsidy, I know it's difficult to draw a line, but I believe that keyword is sustainability. I think that's what you mentioned. So can you be more specific? Where should we focus on? Maybe the answer could vary depending on time to make a judgment what is harmful, what is not harmful, what can be justifiable. So do you have any thoughts in terms of criteria to make a judgment? Thank you. So in a nutshell, I think the key is to be able to be accountable. I think that's what's important. We have to be able to explain that's sustainable. So if you could say that the current catch level does not deplete natural resources in the future, you have to be able to explain to all stakeholders, not just fishermen, but also others in order to access to subsidy. So in Japan, looking at Japan or Japanese subsidies, if you want to ask for a compensation, income compensation, or use money to build vessels, you were supposed to submit a plan how to manage resources to authorities. But the plan may not be good enough. It may not be objective to understand whether the plan is to protect resources. So that is why the plan was criticized by some lawmakers or academics. For example, in order to make money, well, you may be able to say that you can take 2 days off to protect fishermen. And you say that you could conserve resources, but that may not be good enough. You may have to cut 50%. Fish cannot really speak out, but based on the knowledge of fishermen and researchers, we just have to prove what is good enough. But I think we will have this criticism moving forward. I think that's possible. Because I think in 2 years from now, in order for fishermen to access to income guarantee compensation, new system will be introduced. And that is based on the latest scientific information to close the research management agreement and publish the progress. So if the latest scientific information says that your catch level is good enough, you can access to subsidy. So that is why there will be less criticism moving forward. I'm not sure if this is going to work 100%. I think the key is to make the best use of latest scientific knowledge and information. And first and foremost, we have to improve the quality of scientific knowledge. Otherwise, we may see challenges in terms of human resources and financial resources. And I think what's important is to accept inconvenient scientific truths. If you say that the current level is overfishing, that may not be convenient. And also you may think that you don't want to harm fishermen who are really working hard. You may say that the scientific information is not true. You may want to say that it's better than 2 years ago. Of course, the researchers are collecting information. If the fish population is growing compared to 3 years ago, that's not the case if you compare that against 20 years ago. So if that's what researcher says, instead of being judgmental, instead of denying that categorically, you may be able to face the facts and then make a suggestion to move to a different area or shift to different species. So based on facts, we should have a dialogue and then share ideas and know-hows. And then if we can do that, we can be sustainable and the quality of science will also improve. So that will be win-win for every stakeholder. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think it's important to make a policy based on scientific facts for natural or wild fire, for example. You can see what's wrong. I wish we could see same kind of indicator when it comes to overcatch. So we hope that we can share information based on scientific facts.
Next, we'd like to ask the question to Kuwata-san. You shared with us some of the advanced practices overseas. Maybe we are a bit behind. And about these overseas practices, what are the actual driving force to really put them forward? How do you view? Maybe there is something that we could strengthen in Japan to support fishery operators and network. Kwada-san, please. Thank you very much for the question. This kind of a question tend to be that the NGO is always active in the United States. That's the end. That's not the kind of the answer that I want to give. Of course, there are many different views, but as a matter of fact, there are many problems, of course, in the Western countries. But the reason that the damage given by fishery is not something really that you can ignore. The labor slaving and the through many scientific measures, these damages are being visualized. That is very important. As Otto-san said earlier about the sustainable accountability. Sometimes we even are rejected when we talk about this accountability, but to put it the other way around, when you have the proper accountability, the bad guys giving the damage to you, and if you can prove that this is the damage that you're receiving and make it visible, that will protect the proper fishery operators. I think this is very important. And of course, the science not all what we need. It must be correlated with the non-governmental agencies and the governmental offices. And as a matter of fact, in the United States, the government has issued the most recent report from the trade organization, and the collection and dispersion of the scientific information and the collaboration with the fisheries and stakeholders and the governmental level, they are actually researching how important this could be. So the cross-sectional collaboration is, with some problem, of course, is strong or stronger, and that's one of the driving force, I believe. Thank you very much. So we need to recognize the common understanding to catch this against this loss. We are running out of time. I think maybe you can give just. I think I would like to ask each presenter to give a short message to the audience, please. Hirai-san, please.
Thank you. Today I discussed acts on domestic distribution and importation of specific aquatic animals and plants, as well as aquatic eco-level. So there are still things that we need to work on, but I'd like to ask for your continued support. Thank you.
Professor Kawaifu, illegal fishing, illegal processing and distribution, what damage could be given to the society? Of course, that could be measurable. And in order to do that, there are people who are exploited, and we need to be creative about those people behind. Because I know that there are many people who are actually being exploited because of these bad crimes, and we need to change the scheme. That's really something that I feel strongly recently. Because the fishery and the distribution, that's everything all done by human beings. And we need to think about the people involved. Thank you very much. Yes, this is really the SDGs. Mr. Ota, please.
Yes, as mentioned in my presentation, when we introduce regulation or when we take another look at subsidy system, fishery industry people, I don't think it's victims. People are victims. What we are trying to do is to improve fishery industry. But some people are skeptical. We are not trying to damage the industry. And some people are concerned. I do understand your concern. But again, this is for the future. I think we have to be on the same page. We have to make it positive. That's what I expect. Thank you. Yes, I think we should be positive. I hope we can do that. Next, Kuwata-san.
Finally, Kwada-san, please. Maybe I am duplicating the same comment with other presenters and talking issue of the IUU with the regulation. It's not that we are bullying the fishery operators, and you tend to be very to focus on the minor issues, which species should be selected or not. But it's all about the big issues, including climate change and exploitation and the slavery, modern slavery, and it's not something that just one single operator can solve. So we need to go advance hand in hand. Thank you very much. There are many questions, and why is not eel amongst the species discovered, and what is the reason that the eco label does not really expand? So maybe we can continue in the second session. Thank you all the presenters of the first part. I would like to bring back the floor to Ms. Hoshino. Thank you very much. Ms. Kobayashi-san, thank you very much. It was a very meaningful discussion. We see all different kinds of the fish in the supermarket and the fish stores. We are a maritime state in Japan, and because we have been living and enjoying the fish and the food culture with the food, I think we can think about the sustainable fishery and the realization. We'd like to start the next second session 3 minutes after 6. We'd like to resume the session 3 minutes after 6. We need to change the session, the image. So just stay a few minutes. The audience, please just wait. Thank you very much. Thank you for waiting. We'd like to start this second session. In this second session, we would like to look at the actual practices and the prospect for a sustainable fishery. And we'd like to have the discussion with the fishing operators and processing operator distributors and restaurants about the abolition of the IUU fishery and also the food deriving from IUU. And first, I would like to introduce Mr. Matsunaga, who is managing the fishing fishing company in Miyagi Prefecture. Mr. Matsunaga established the Meiho fishery back in 2012, and in 2016, this company has acquired the eco label MSC certificate, and this company is specialized in the fishing of the bonito and the albal tuna, And has been also the leading figure in the region to support the advanced initiatives, including helping fishery bonitoes and from the ship to come back to the port, and after great earthquake, and recuperating the regional fishing industry. And now I'd like to introduce Mr. Matsunaga. Mr. Matsunaga, please.
Hello, こんにちは。名宝漁業の松永です。
Hello, my name is Matsunaga. Can you hear me? This is Matsunaga from Meiho Fishery. So thank you for the introduction. I'd like to talk about the initiatives that we're doing in our city. I myself, although I recognize myself as the fishery operator, but actually I was engaged in the processing of the seafood. And after the great earthquake which hit our region, I started to be one of the category of a fishery operator. As seen from the real, authentic fisherman, maybe they may say, well, I'm not the one, but it's starting in 2012, we started this initiative. Amongst those initiatives, we acquired the 2016, I acquired the MSC, and in the Shiogama city, that's where we have the a company. But actually, I was brought up in Shizuoka prefecture in Yaizu, and Yaizu is really the port city, a fishing port city, and that's where I grew up from from my childhood. In the 1990s, 1960s, the fishing was very active and lively. And when I was a small boy, Yaizu port was really lively with the fishery. And after I graduated from school, I went back to the Yaizu and started to work for the seafood processing company. And then at that time, the memory that I had from about the Yaizu, the small fishing port, and at that time when I went back to Yaizu, there was a big difference. And the number of the ships started to decline. And long time ago, I still remember that there, even on the crossroad of the big street, we used to see a lot of big fish just and all over. Uh, so one of the reasons that I decided to acquire MSC was that I had some knowledge about MSC, but at that time I really made a strong determination to acquire this to help the fishing industry. And I knocked on the door of the MSC office, and we happened to be quite applicable to the platform of MSC. So honestly speaking, we were lucky to be able to get the MSC certificate. We were just lucky without that much difficulty. However, we had to bear certain level of expense to get this certificate. Of course, there is some subsidy. However, if you try to get this certificate with just one single small company, it might be a little difficult. So you need to form a team by which it makes it easier to acquire the MSC. Now, what's different before and after the acquisition of a MSC certificate? Uh, we use just one single rod to fish. There's not that much difference, but for the fisherman, I always tell that because we are now have acquired the MSC certificate, we tell them not to just throw away the garbages, And if the fish too small, don't take them. And good thing about the MSC, because I had been engaged in the processing of the fishery for a long time. For example, to the supermarket, we were welcomed very much, particularly by large companies, large supermarkets. There are quite a number of the supermarkets which support us. So in terms of the business, we were able to increase our revenue. But when it comes to the unit price, whether we can actually increase the unit price from 100 yen to 120, 150, that's not the case. After all, the end users or end consumers don't really know about the MSC, and so the awareness is still very low to the end consumers. So we cannot ask them to buy our fish just because they're with the MSC. And finally, as the someone who is engaged in this fishery industry, we are trying to be more and more eco-friendly, and we believe what we're doing is the right, and we believe, and we continue to advance, and that's what we must do. Thank you very much.
はい、松永さんどうもありがとうございました。
Thank you very much, Matsunaga-san.
MSC 取得して、持続
So
可能な
acquiring
漁業
MSC, you are promoting the sustainable fishery, and also very interesting here that you're giving the added value to seafood.
Next, please allow me to introduce Mr. Ryohei Nomoto, President of Haneda Ichiba. Mr. Nomoto has established a novel procurement and distribution fishery network and appears frequently on the TV and magazine. We'd like to hear how he's trying to realize sustainable fishery overcoming COVID-19. Nomoto-san, the floor is yours. Thank you. Hi, I'm Nomoto with Haneda Ichiba. Please allow me to introduce myself and my company. May I share my slide? Yes, please. Okay, give me a minute. Do you want me to drive the slide? I think I can manage. You have many slides. Okay, I can share my screen. Yes. Okay, this is about Haneda Ichiba or Haneda Market. Let me switch to slideshow. Okay, thank you. Okay, our company is located at Haneda Airport in Japan. So the company has been running up until today, and I used to work for restaurant industry. And our shareholders, Mitsubishi Estate, Sushido, Norin Chukin Bank, and those are my shareholders. What makes our company unique is that it's not a really a direct, but without many layers, we purchase products from fishermen and deliver products to customers, consumers as soon as possible. And we have a traceability system. Every product can be traced 100%. We are able to track who could which products. So I'm going to skip my some of my slides. Let me explain what our company does.
野本さん、ちょっと音が聞こえてないみたい。
I'm not able to hear you, Mr. Nomoto.
解説をちょっとお話しいただければ。
If you could verbally explain the slide, okay? Okay, let me explain. So we use air. So fish is delivered to Haneda Airport by container. Temperature is checked, inspection is done. Fish was caught at Fukuoka in the morning, and then it's delivered to Haneda by 8:30. So you see squid. It's really fresh. So inspection is done, weight is checked. And then by customer, based on slip, products are shipped to supermarkets or restaurants. Products are being sorted by customer. You can check who caught fish at what time or when. Okay, so fish is caught in the morning in order to increase value of products. We do some processing and we do labeling to indicate value of products. And then we include flyers in the package. We include a poster of a fisherman in order to motivate producers. We do something that could increase value. So instead of, we make sure that fish is not directly exposed to ice. We use a plastic package and then add additional layer so that fish is protected by ice. And we do processing at the airport, Haneda Airport. And then it's vacuum packed. We do our business with different countries. Its products are vacuum packed, and the guts and bones are removed before being shipped to overseas. So that's what we do. And then products are shipped. So that's what we do. We partner with ANA and JL so that products can be delivered on time. And also we started to work with JR East to use Shinkansen to deliver products. Tohoku, Joetsu, Hokkaido, and different production areas are connected to Tokyo. Last year, we were able to occupy entire car to deliver around 800 kilograms of products to Tokyo. At Tokyo Station, there are 3 restaurants, and the 4th restaurant will open next month so that consumers can enjoy fresh food there, delivered by Shinkansen. And also we use high-speed buses to deliver products, fishery products from different parts of Japan. We deliver products to different restaurants. At Tokyo Station, you can find conveyor belt sushi restaurant. For the first time in Japan, eco-label sushi was introduced, such as tuna and different species were certified as eco-friendly. Eco-level will be introduced to different stores moving forward. And on 21st of July, at Tokyo Station, Tokiwa building, another store opened, and next month there will be another restaurant to be opened in Ikebukuro Sunshine Building. So we manage not just distribution, but also retail stores or restaurants for consumers to enjoy. Okay, Nomoto-san, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I understand that you are trying to be sustainable while keeping eye on your eye and trying to connect consumers with sustainable fishermen. Thank you very much.
では続きまして、木島さん、木島博明
Next,
さん。
we'd like to introduce Hiroaki Kijima. Mr. Kijima is the head of the business strategy office of the company Kijima, and he is having a lot of the initiative to have the sustainable food in the restaurant. Mr. Kijima, please.
スライドショーで始めてください。
はい。よろしくお願いいたします。株式会社木島。
So, hello. My name is Hiroaki Kijima from the company Kijima, and thank you for this opportunity. Today, I am going to talk about what restaurants can do for sustainable fishery. I have about 5 minutes to talk about what we are doing and what we could do to contribute to the sustainable fishery as the restaurants. Firstly, a brief explanation, introduction about the Kijima, my company. Kijima is located in the Totsuka ward. It started the Japanese restaurant in Totsuka ward of Yokohama City in the Kanagawa Prefecture. We have 6 restaurants. We also do the catering, and also we do sell the delicatessen and some delivery as well. As you can see on the right-hand side, typically we are providing traditional typical Japanese food. And this is the management philosophy to contribute to the creation and development of the sustainable community through food. And in order to do that, we have a lot of the initiatives. For example, the sustainable seafood, which is the theme of today's session. And we try to use organic vegetables and the good food in line with the animal health. And we try not to use any materials which may pollute the ocean. Now, what we believe we can do as a Kijima for the rich ocean. Nowadays, about 2-3 years in the past, within our company, this is the slogan that we are trying to send out as the Kijima: tasty Japanese cuisine, rich ocean forever. Back in 2019, as the very first Japanese restaurant in Japan, we acquired a COC certificate, and we treat sustainable seafood with the MSC certificate, ASC certificate in all the restaurants that we are operating. For example, the sustainable seafood certificate, such as MSC and ASC, we are showing the percentage of how many percentage the food that we are actually using of that kind amongst all the different foods that we are providing in the restaurant. Starting around autumn last year, we started what we call the Kijima Organic, the Sustainable Organic Challenge. And at this website, by different items, how much MSC food and MSC fishery seafood we are using is shown. And also, together with the Environment Conservation Organization, we provide the special menu focusing on sustainable seafood. Last year, we had such an honor that we were awarded the second Japan Sustainable Seafood Award. And today, what we believe we can do at Kijima to abolish IUU fishery. As a Kijima, a restaurant can do is, for example, for the customers, we want to make sure that the customers can expect that they can be provided the sustainable seafood as long as they go to Kijima. And we want to provide such an option to enable such provision to the customers. I'm sure there are all different views. However, as a restaurant, we won't always want the customers to understand that once they come to Kijima, the sustainable seafood is always available to the customers. I think that's the first thing that we think we can do. And nextly, to the producers, we want to ensure there is a sustainable exit for their fishery products, meaning that we want to support the producers. We've been in this business over 40 years, and we are aware of the problems in the producers, of course, including the fishery industry. So by making sure that we buy their products, meaning the fish and seafood, we want to maintain and sustain them. And also in terms of the quality, it is very important to have the credibility for quality. And we have to have the people understand that sustainable seafood is delicious. And we want to strengthen this impression, and this will lead to added value. The issues and prospect for future, the sea harvest is something that is supporting the Japanese food. Even compared with the many different cuisine of other countries, this cuisine, we are proud. It's extremely attractive and the characteristic. However, at the same time, we're concerned about the depletion of such resources. Not that we stop eating the sea harvest because they're running short, but whilst respecting and continuing to respect the Japanese cuisine, we also want to send out the message that we can also keep the sustainable fishery and the seafood and the fishery resources whilst enjoying the Japanese cuisine culture. So quickly, I try to explain about what we try to achieve in the Kijima restaurant, and I hope that we can continue to contribute for that aim. Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Mr. Kijima. By continuing to providing the sustainable seafood, they are making their efforts in this direction. Actually, one of my staff recommends this their restaurant as a highly recommended restaurant.
Next, let me introduce Ms. Minako Iue, Chair and CEO of Sailors for the Sea Japan, who has been working on marine conservation and sustaining fishing industry. Ms. Iue, the floor is yours. Thank you. Hi, my name is Iue, Sailor for the Sea Japan. Nice to meet you all. So today I'd like to explain marine conservation and sustainable fishing industry as well as IUU fishing. So again, thank you for your kind introduction. I am the founder and the chair of Sailor for the Sea Japan, and I am also working for Kyoto University Global Environmental Studies, as well as Keio University SFC as a researcher. So about our Sailors for the Sea, as you can see on the screen, we have developed Blue Seafood Guide. That is a rating program. So as you may know, in order to assess sustainable seafood, we need assessment and we need a rating system. So there are two options. And the Blue Seafood Guide, like the one in the US, it's a rating program. So we do have a unique methodology to do the rating. So we have a printout like this, and you can access to our website. It's free of charge to access to the information. You can make the best use of this. As a spin-off, you can look at the right-hand side. We have blue seafood recipe, and down below, you can find blue seafood beauty book. Every Monday, we use SNS to send this information to subscribers. And Mie municipality, Mie prefecture, and also Tokyo metropolitan government closed a comprehensive agreement with us. So we have one for Tokyo, one for Tokyo version. Okay, I'd like to move on to the next slide. So this is the current rating program. I'd like to explain a bit about methodology. So if you look at our Blue Seafood Guide, you can find MSC and ASC, BSC together with Seafood Watch Best Choice. And you can see there are some overlaps. And we also refer to fishery agencies score and also database to make an assessment. And those that are not included in the overlap portion, species can sit in the blue box under blue seafood choice. So with this, we are able to assess species available in Japan. And on the left, you can see Japanese water / vessel. So this is to support stakeholders in Japan, fishermen in Japan. So we decided to highlight Japanese water and the vessel, a species that fall under Japanese water. And this is the methodology. This is similar to MSC's methodology. You can find, well, actually, our team member worked with MSC work member to define this. But our methodology's criteria is different. So you can make a comparison to find out what are the differences and what are something in common among different certificates. This is an example. Next week, Olympics will start. MSC guide was introduced in Rio and London. ASC was also used, and Tokyo is down below. And in Osaka 2025, there will be expo. So we hope that we can be up to the international standard. And also the law was enacted regarding the domestic distribution and importation of specified seafood. And we hope that all species will be incorporated into the scope because across the world, if you look at Europe, all species are included in the scope. And the US, I know that bill has just passed to expand the number of species from 13 to all. So if we don't do the same, Japan could suffer from disadvantages, and also international community may be disappointed with what Japan has done. So in order to prevent the harm, we should incorporate all fishes or species into the scope. That is all for my part. Thank you very much. Well, it was very interesting to learn about Blue Seafood Guide, which promotes consumption of abundant fish species. I hope it'd be great. I hope more restaurants can start to use Blue Seafood Guide. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. All very interesting presentation. Once again, thank you very much. And once again, just like the first session, we have a little less than 20 minutes, and I'd like to ask Kobayashi-san to serve as the moderator again. With the cameras on for the presenters, we would like to have the free discussion session, and would like to invite the audience to give the question again. Thank you very much. And we actually have received the question. Firstly, the first question is to Matsunaga-san. Is there anything that you have felt about the after listening to the presentation? And when you think about the 20 years later, the longer term strategy is important with the change of the fishing ground and the higher the declining resources. What's the future as prospect? Maybe you can refer to that, please. First of all, Matsunaga-san, please. Yes, thank you. Having listened to your presentation as the fisher operator, I was just so ashamed as one of the operator because everyone is studying so well, and because I am involved and occupied with the day-to-day business, and IUU and other things. We have been too busy, and there are many things that I'm not even aware of. I should really learn more, just because, particularly because I'm the someone who is working on the front line. And when we think about the situation 10 years later, 20, 30 years later, we have certified. It's been over a little less than 10 years since we acquired the MSC. Now, as one of the fishing industry operator, definitely it's not. We haven't made a mistake, and I think that what we have come through is correct. But if we only try to struggle, it's not good enough. We need to have a team to involve other stakeholders. Thus leading to the bigger initiative, and that's maybe something that we must perform. Thank you very much, Matsunaga-san. Yes, the team forming is very important. Next, Nomoto-san.
So I know that you are a pioneer of fishery product distribution. So talking about MSC, well, people may say that MSC products taste different, but Nomoto-san, looking at what you have done about distribution, so consumers are looking for high quality products, and you have to work with fishermen who can be trusted. And I think what you are doing is to connect trusted fishermen with consumers. Do you think that the market will grow? So what's your focus area? Well, Tabetoku, Hokumake, or fishermen and others, I think, have more opportunities to sell their products to consumers directly, and including us, we use EC channel, e-commerce channel, and with EC channel, we can sell a lot of products, and I think the market will grow substantially moving forward. But talking about fish, unlike fruits like orange, you can't just cut by yourself. So who is going to process fish for consumers? If you look at supermarkets like IY or others, they can't really find part-time staff who can cut and process fish as the population is aging. I think that's one of the challenges that we have to address. Well, even if products are delivered to Tokyo, I don't think housewives or people can really cut fish and process fish by themselves. So I think one challenge we have to address is to find people who are able to process and cut fish for consumers. But a restaurant operator like Kijima may help. We deliver products to restaurant operator, and then they may be able to process fish. So if we can develop a platform like this, that would be great. If a fisherman can catch fish, and then we can deliver products to platform, and then consumers may be able to order fish online in the morning and then stop by a restaurant like a Kijima's restaurant and then pick up already processed fish in the evening. So that could be interesting. So restaurant could be a platform. Gurunavi is a member. They work with 130,000 restaurants. I think we are capable of delivering fish to an operator like them. So we need a professional who is able to process fish for consumers. So if we can find that piece, I think market could become even bigger. And regarding IUU, well, these days, we procure fish from different parts of the nation, and we had an opportunity to speak to fishery agency, and some fishermen in Tohoku is trying to sell glass eel to us. So that could be a surprise. I mean, some are really small, and also bluefin tuna is another common species, frozen tuna fish as is without being removed. Tuna could be delivered to us. It's frozen, so it's really fresh. And they try to sell 1 kilogram of tuna with 500 yen. So I can tell that's a fortune. And also imported fish is being distributed. I know that there are a lot of wholesalers, I mean, processing companies, I should say, that are looking for tuna because one caught in Japan Sea could be very expensive. So some illegally caught fish is being distributed in Japan. So we have to find a way to stop that from coming into the supply chain. I know that fishery agency is trying to address this, but that's a challenge. Yeah, I understand. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us. So illegal fish is coming into the market, coming into the supply chain. And I think it's an important challenge to address how to find talents who are capable of processing fish for consumers. Yeah, we'd like to talk more about this topic at a later date. Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask Kijima-san. There are quite a few questions to Kijima-san. Some people say that the MSC certificate seafood is not really widely available in society. The distribution is not stable. Maybe it's not an indicator about this taste or nutrition, and some people criticize, point out about MSC. And also, it is not well understood by the meaning of the MSC. And the species, maybe there are the customers that want some of the fishery, the seafood for which the species is not covered in this to be subject to the sustainability the act. And what do you think about the current situation? Well, thank you very much for your question. Firstly, about to answer Nagahama-san, who gave the two questions. Matsunaga-san said that the people are not necessarily willing to buy just because they're proper and with the certificate. my answer is yes, that is correct. And the people do not buy the fish seafood higher just because they're fine or proper. If we try to replace the artificial material ingredient with all organic or natural or proper the spices and the seafood, sometimes it could be as high as twice as much. Uh, Frankly speaking, currently it is difficult for us to pass on such costs to the customers. So whilst we continue our efforts to buy higher, but as you may easily imagine, it's not easy to make them distribute at higher price. And all the seafood places or supermarkets, I'm sure these stakeholders all share the same problem with us. So it's not that the customers understand probably 100% about what the meaning of the certificate. Next, in case that the seafood with the traceability, apart from whether they're actually numbered or not, if we are willing to buy them more expensively, the answer is yes and no, because the values of the seafood, talking about the sustainability, traceability, it is just one of many indicators of the values of the seafood. The people don't buy them just because sustainable. So, because sustainability is not necessarily something to prove that they're more tasty. And currently, they're not to consider the same value between the sustainability and the taste. So we love to buy the seafood. And it'll be wonderful if we could make an announcement that the Kijima will buy anything as long as that is sustainable. But frankly and practically, we cannot do that because AC and MSC, they do not necessarily guarantee the quality. And no people think that they are willing to accept any seafood, even if they don't taste well, only if they're sustainable. Nobody thinks that way. So quality is also very important. And of course, in restaurant, supermarket, in our business, we have to have the viable business. We need to keep our business running. So that's why I said yes and no. Thank you very much. Yes, sustainable, reasonable, tasty. It must be very difficult to satisfy all these conditions. Next to ESM, please.
So Yue-san, I know that you are working with different restaurants and businesses. So one of the questions says that if your system is comparable with overseas system, and talking about the definition of sustainable food or MSC, I think you covered this in your presentation, but is this the same as, I mean, a certified seafood is the same as sustainable? And how are you trying to convince people to pay more for sustainable food from the perspective of restaurants? They cannot really pay a lot of probably money for sustainable food. I wonder if you could share your thoughts on that. Thank you. So about your first question, regarding the Global Seafood Rating Alliance, it's run 11 programs in 12 countries, I believe. So that's an international alliance. So there is well, there will be a common or standardized standard. Well, we have been trying to establish a standard, and on a monthly basis, we meet with members to establish standard. And regarding the certification and rating program, certificating rating collaboration alliance is available. Again, we are trying to seek for standard. It's still evolving. So what I can say for now is that, for example, the criteria for seafood watch may say that every seafood in Japan is not compliant because of lack of data in Japan. Bycatch raw or harvest raw data is not enough in Japan. It's limited, I should say, in Japan. So with the seafood watch methodology, all products may be it may be incompliant. So that is why we decided to establish Blue Seafood Guide. So I'm not saying which is good, which is bad. It varies from place to place. So again, a standard is being developed. It's still under being development. And regarding the definition of sustainability, I know that there are different opinions, different discussions. And if we all issued a code of conduct, and there is a pillar, and MSC and some defined 3 principles. So again, I think it's necessary to discuss what sustainability is, but it's not a legally binding definition at this moment. And lastly, regarding pricing issue, for example, Nomoto-san, Kijima-san, and Matsunaga-san have certificates. Once majority of operators have certificate, what would happen? Then non-certified products are not going to sell. I think that's what we should be aiming at. I know we are discussing IUU today. Then how can consumers distinguish between IUU and non-IUU fishing? That could be a challenge. But at this moment, if you consume certified products, at least you can avoid consuming illegal products. And also newly established Act on Domestic Distribution. If the Act can incorporate as many species as possible, that would also help us to eliminate IUU fishing from the market. Yue-san, thank you very much. Well, we are running out of time, so let me move on.
やっぱり松永さんが途中でおっしゃられたその仲間をどう増やすかということについてもそのやはり松永さんの
So I would like each presenter to give the last message. Matsunaga-san earlier mentioned that it is very important to try to form a team, just not trying to work by each stakeholder. I'm sure there are many things to overcome, but please talk about the prospect in the future and any messages to the customers or the fishery operator or anyone in the fishery industry, please? Of course, I don't really have the perfect answer to give, but my sentiment or the spirit as one of the things persons in this fishing industry, including all the stakeholders, I think it's very important to continue to make this appeal with all my might of my life. I think that attitude will lead to what we'll be able to achieve in 50 years' time, maybe. Thank you, Mr. Matsunaga. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Nomoto-san. We have a personnel from Fishery Agency. I know that you have been working with authorities as well as businesses. So if you think about Japan fishery industry, how can we make it evolve? From the perspective of a head of a business and also as a stakeholder of this industry, I'd like to ask for your comment. Can you unmute yourself? As a matter of fact, I got the same question, similar question, what we should do by 2030. I think we have to prevent government officials taking positions of big corporations after being retired. Because in order to be fair, I think we have to make it clear. We have to fix the situation. And we discussed the catch documentation scheme. Well, finally, official agencies started to work on it. Then they decided to include the sea cucumber and the abalone. I was actually taking part in the meeting, but the system is not really systematic. It's really manual to make report. Well, abalone could be included in sea cucumber to count a lot, and from our perspective, it's nonsense. So we have to develop a system so that all the stakeholders and also as brokers would find the system efficient. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable. And there may be some loophole unless the system is fully developed. Thank you very much. So we have to take the system from scratch. I think that's important. Thank you for your thoughts.
Next,
Mr. Kijima, as the restaurant operator, please give the final message about the prospect in the future, and to someone who would like to follow your roadmap. Thank you. Well, we are just a small restaurant, and I feel rather embarrassed about talking about our future prospect, but I am committed to continuing to do whatever we can do, increasing the certificate seafood percentage. And as Mr. Matsunaga said, the many operators are doing everything they can do to make the fishery industry sustainable. So we would like to do the basic of the business, meaning provide a proper food and a good cooking to serve the best tasting, delicious seafood to the customer. And I am not sure other players will follow what we are doing in our restaurant, but I just want to tell you that it's not something easy. Sustainable seafood is very important to be presented to the customers as one option. So to make the sustainable seafood available to the customer, and the first step would be for the customers to experience the sustainable seafood. That's what I believe. So I would like to continue this movement in my restaurant. So back to the basics, right? Thank you very much. May I think there are a few questions that I was not able to answer, but please tell me later on how I could answer the questions raised, because I'd love to answer these questions later on. Thank you. And sustainable seafood, as the great supporter, Mrs. Irie, please.
Thank you. Once again, thank you for the opportunity. I know different kinds of stakeholders are working really hard. I think it's important to work together. And above all, I know there are a lot of challenges, but for the first time in 7 years, Fishery Agency is working really hard to transform the administration. So I'd like to extend great respect to the authority I am backing on that support. And for consumers, we hope that they can enjoy choosing and consuming sustainable seafood. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you. Sustainable fishery, sustainable seafood industry, we hope can continue to enjoy success. So Hoshino-san, back to you. Once again, thank you so much. Kobayashi-san, thank you very much. Panelists, thank you very much. I enjoyed in-depth discussion. It's great to hear from those frontliners. So in part one, we looked at current status and challenges of IUU fishing. And in part two, we had practical examples and prospects and sustainable fisheries. So SDGs clearly state about IUU fishing to abolish IUU fishing and promote sustainable fishery. So many people are engaged, and I think we need to stay engaged and work together. I hope this seminar has helped you to deepen your understanding. So we are also promoting SDGs. So EPC will continue to collaborate with all of you to realize sustainable society and achieve SDGs. Thank you for your continued support. So we were supposed to make a closing remark, but unfortunately, Mr. Awano, Japan Journalist Association, is not well, so he's not able to join us, but time is up. So once again, thank you very much for taking your time to join us. And thank you so much for your presentation. And Mr. Kobayashi, moderator, thank you very much. So with that, I'd like to close online seminar. Online seminar, SDG stakeholders meeting ending IUU fishing and hammerhook subsidies, pursuing collaboration and partnership. And when you leave the Zoom meeting, you will find a pop-up screen that asks you to fill in a questionnaire. I hope you can fill that in so that we can make the best use of your inputs to plan the future webinar.